Some women find themselves perpetually drawn to the phantom of a man, the man who is already taken, the man who is emotionally closed off, the man who leaves a trail of breadcrumbs but never the feast. He's the one who promises a future he has no intention of building, the one who appears just as you've started to move on, only to disappear again. This cycle, this haunting repetition, feels like a cruel form of fate, an invisible magnet pulling you toward the very thing that breaks you. But what if this isn't about fate at all? What if it's a story written not in the stars, but in the deepest, most shadowy corners of your own psyche? This is the story of the Animus, the inner masculine principle within every woman. Jung called it the inner man, an unconscious counterpart that holds the keys to a woman's soul. But when this animus is underdeveloped, wounded, or overshadowed by trauma, it can project itself onto the external world in devastating ways. It seeks out a partner, not for connection, but for completion. The woman becomes a seeker, an emotional detective, trying to solve the puzzle of a man who is, by definition, unsolvable. She is not chasing a man, she is chasing a phantom projection of her own missing masculine energy. The unavailable man becomes the perfect mirror for this inner deficiency. He is the embodiment of the very part of her that she has yet to integrate, the part that is strong, decisive, and free. This isn't a flaw, it's a shadow. And shadow work, as Jungian psychology teaches, is the painful, necessary process of confronting the parts of ourselves we have hidden away. The woman who chases the unavailable man is often running from her own shadow. She is afraid of her own power, her own voice, and her own ability to stand alone. The chase itself becomes a distraction, a way to avoid the quiet, terrifying work of building her own foundation. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." In this context, the woman isn't poor in love. She is poor in self-sufficiency. She craves the validation, the attention, the promise of the unavailable man because it temporarily fills a void within her, a void that only she can truly fill. The unavailable man is a powerful archetype. He is often charismatic, alluring, and emotionally distant. He represents the wild, untamed masculine, the part of the animus that has yet to be domesticated and integrated into a woman's consciousness. This archetype is compelling because it offers a glimpse of freedom and adventure, but it also carries the inherent risk of abandonment. The woman's inner world, shaped by childhood wounds and societal expectations, becomes a fertile ground for this archetype to take root. She may have grown up with an emotionally distant father, a mother who sacrificed her own needs for a man, or a culture that taught her her worth was tied to her ability to secure a partner. These early experiences create a blueprint, a psychological script that she unconsciously follows. The animus, in its undeveloped state, can be a demanding and critical inner voice. It whispers to her that she isn't enough, that she needs a man to complete her, and that her worth is determined by his attention. This inner voice becomes the driving force behind her relentless pursuit. The pain of the chase, the agony of the hope followed by disappointment, is a familiar, almost comforting form of suffering. It's the pain she knows, the pain that feels like home. And yet, there is another way. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The journey out of this cycle is not about changing the man, it is about changing the mind. It is about withdrawing the projection, reclaiming the animus, and integrating the strength, decisiveness, and freedom that she has been seeking in another. It's about recognizing that the power she has been giving away has always been her own. The liberation begins when she stops chasing a ghost and starts building a home within herself. The chase itself is a form of emotional purgatory, a landscape where a woman's worth is perpetually under negotiation. She becomes a high-stakes gambler, betting her peace of mind on the unpredictable whims of another. She meticulously analyzes every text message, every shared glance, every fleeting moment of connection, searching for a sign that her investment is paying off. This is the animus in its wounded state, the inner masculine force that, instead of providing a steady foundation, has been tasked with an impossible mission: to extract love and validation from a source that is fundamentally incapable of providing it. This is a profound misunderstanding of love itself. Love is not something you can earn, prove, or win. It is a state of being, a reflection of your own inner capacity for connection. The unavailable man is a promer of her trauma. He doesn't cause the pain, he reveals the existing wound. His emotional distance echoes a childhood where emotional needs were unmet. His inconsistency mirrors a chaotic environment where safety was never guaranteed. Her addiction to the chase is a subconscious attempt to rewrite that history, to finally win the attention and affection she was denied. But you cannot heal a past wound by reopening it in the present. You cannot force a new ending onto an old, unresolved story. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus taught that we must distinguish between what is in our control and what is not. The man's actions, his emotional availability, his desire for you, these are outside of your control. Your reaction, your focus, your energy, these are entirely within your grasp. The woman who can't stop chasing is, in effect, fighting a battle on the wrong front. She is trying to control the uncontrollable instead of mastering herself. This is where the concept of projection becomes brutally clear. She isn't seeing the man for who he truly is. She is seeing the man she needs him to be. She projects her own potential, her own emotional depth, her own capacity for love onto him, believing that if she can just unlock that potential in him, she will, in turn, be validated. But the phantom she pursues has no substance. He is a canvas for her own unfulfilled desires. The moment of awakening comes when she realizes the qualities she is desperately seeking in him. Strength, security, commitment are not his to give. They are hers to cultivate. This is the first, most terrifying step of individuation, the process of becoming a whole, integrated person. It is the moment she must withdraw the projection, take back the power she has given away, and turn her gaze inward. This process is not for the faint of heart. It requires a radical act of self-honesty. It means admitting that the love story she has been living is a tragedy of her own making, a beautiful lie she told herself to avoid the harder truth. It means sitting with the pain, the loneliness, and the fear of being alone. But within that pain lies a powerful catalyst for transformation. The emptiness she feels is not a void to be filled by a man, but a space to be filled by herself. This is the moment she begins to court her own Animus, to build a relationship with her inner masculine. She starts to make her own decisions, to set her own boundaries, to become the protector and provider of her own emotional well-being. The external chase ceases to be a necessity because the inner search has finally begun. She is no longer a seeker, she is a sovereign. She understands that the man she thought she needed was merely a placeholder for the man she was always meant to become, a man of quiet strength and unshakable resolve within her own soul. The woman on the precipice of this awakening faces a profound and terrifying choice: to continue the familiar dance of chasing a ghost, or to stand still and face the void. This void is not empty, it is pregnant with possibility. It is the space where she must confront the very root of her addiction, the fear of her own incompleteness. She has been conditioned to believe that a man's presence is a sign of her value, his absence a mark of her failure. This is a societal wound, a collective shadow that has kept women tethered to external validation for centuries. But the journey of individuation, of integrating the Animus, is an act of rebellion against this very conditioning. It is the brave, solitary act of declaring, "I am whole on my own." This integration is not about becoming a man. It is about assimilating the positive qualities of the masculine principle into her psyche. The healed Animus provides structure, purpose, and a sense of direction. It is the inner authority that says, "This is who I am, this is what I want, and this is where I'm going." It is the force that allows her to set firm boundaries without apology, to make decisions that serve her highest good, and to protect her own emotional and spiritual energy. This inner strength, once projected onto the idealized phantom of the unavailable man, now becomes her own. She no longer needs a man to be her rock, because she has built her own foundation. She no longer needs him to be her protector, because she has become her own guardian. The withdrawal of her projection from the unavailable man is a sacred act of psychological and spiritual hygiene. It is the moment she stops watering a dead plant and begins to tend her own garden. The initial shock is often followed by a period of grief. She mourns not the man himself, but the fantasy she held of him, the potential she believed she could unlock. This mourning is necessary. It is the rite of passage from the woman who sought completion to the woman who finds it within. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Her trial has been the relentless pursuit of the unavailable, and the friction has been the pain of repeated disappointment. From this friction, a new woman is born, one who is polished not by a man's attention, but by her own resilience. Her relationship to the world and to men changes fundamentally. She no longer scans the horizon for a potential savior. Instead, she stands in her own power, radiating a quiet confidence that is far more magnetic than any chase. She attracts men who are whole and available, not because she is trying to, but because her energy has shifted. She no longer requires a man to fill a void. She seeks a partner to share a full life with. Her, Animus, now an ally, guides her toward genuine connection, toward men who honor her boundaries and celebrate her strength. This is not a passive waiting game, it is an active state of being. She is no longer in a state of longing, but in a state of choosing. She chooses herself first, and from that place of radical self-worth, she chooses a partner who can meet her there. This is the ultimate freedom. The freedom from the need to be chosen, replaced by the power to choose. The transformation from the chaser to the chooser is not a destination, but a continuous practice. It is a daily commitment to self-honesty, to boundary setting, and to the cultivation of her inner world. The old patterns do not disappear overnight. There will be moments of temptation, whispers from the old ego that tell her to check his social media, to send that text, to chase the familiar high of emotional uncertainty. But with her integrated animus as her guide, she learns to recognize these urges for what they are, echoes of a past she has outgrown. She learns to sit with the discomfort of letting go, to feel the wave of anxiety without drowning in it, and to choose a different path. This is the essence of Stoic endurance, not a grim acceptance of fate, but a deliberate and powerful choice to align her actions with her values. The woman who has done this work understands that her value is not a commodity to be earned, but a truth to be lived. She no longer seeks a man who can save her because she has learned to save herself. She sees a potential partner not as a solution to her problems, but as a fellow traveler on the journey of life. This shift in perspective is revolutionary. It moves her from a state of neediness to a state of abundance. She is no longer operating from a place of lack, but from a place of fullness. Her life is rich and meaningful on its own terms, and any relationship she enters is an addition to that richness, not a desperate attempt to create it. This is the spiritual sovereignty that Jungian and Stoic philosophies point toward. The outer world is a reflection of the inner world. When her inner world is stable, secure, and whole, the men she attracts will reflect that stability and wholeness. This newfound freedom is not a solitary path. The integrated animus allows her to form deep, meaningful connections with others because she is no longer using people as tools to fill her own emptiness. Her friendships are more authentic, her professional relationships more direct, and her potential for a true, intimate partnership is finally unlocked. She can love another without losing herself because she has a strong, internal sense of self to return to. She can be vulnerable without fear because her self-worth is no longer contingent on the other person's response. This is the powerful, quiet revolution that happens within one woman's soul. She stops chasing the shadow and steps into the light of her own being. She stops asking for permission to be loved and starts giving love to herself. Her story becomes a beacon, not of a woman who found a man, but of a woman who found herself. She is the living embodiment of the truth that true love begins with self-love, and that the greatest relationship you will ever have is the one you cultivate with your own soul. The phantom has been laid to rest. The chase is over. The woman stands alone, and in that solitude, she discovers her unshakable power, her dignity, and her peace. She is no longer defined by the men who left, but by the woman who stayed with herself, who chose her own path, and who became her own hero. The ultimate victory in this journey is not a man, but the profound, unshakable peace that comes from ending the war with yourself. It is the end of the internal conflict that pitted your longing against your self-worth. The woman who has integrated her animus, who has reclaimed her power, no longer needs external validation to feel complete. Her happiness is no longer a fragile thing dependent on another's fickle attention. It is a state of grace, a quiet joy that emanates from a deep sense of self-possession. She is no longer chasing the temporary high of a text message, but building the lasting fulfillment of a life well lived, a life she has deliberately and courageously chosen. This is the state of emotional freedom. It is the liberation from the psychological slavery of attachment, the kind of freedom the Stoics championed. She understands, as Marcus Aurelius did, that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Her soul is no longer colored with the gray of longing and the red of pain, but with the vibrant hues of purpose and self-respect. She no longer seeks a man to complete her, because she is already a masterpiece in progress, a work of art created by her own hands. This is the rebirth, the moment when the woman who was lost in a labyrinth of her own making finally steps out into the open air. The healing is not a destination, but a continuous unfolding. She will encounter other men, some unavailable, some whole, and in each encounter, she will be guided by her integrated animus. She will not be a passive participant in her own story, but an active, discerning director. The old patterns may resurface, but she will have the tools to observe them without being consumed by them. She will be a witness to her own feelings, not a slave to them. This detachment from the outcome, this profound trust in her own worth, is the final, powerful lesson. The journey began with the painful magnetism of the unavailable man, a projection of her own inner incompleteness. It ends with a woman who has found her center, who stands in her own light, and who has no need to chase a shadow. She has become her own hero, her own guardian, and her own source of love. The cycle is broken, the addiction is healed, she is free. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.